Lawson Cheek holds one of our principal elected student government offices. He is the Student Chief Justice at Colorado Christian University. We're all careful not to cross Lawson Cheek, so I want him to start the questioning.
Thanks, John. Ken, I thank you for joining us. I'd like to ask you a question. Some of my peers believe that economic recession in America is a sign of a failing capitalist society. How would you respond?
Let's start with Tom Weems, please.
Thank you. Business has cycles. Economies have cycles. We're in a serious situation with our economy right now. But the answer isn't to throw private enterprise out the door. The answer is to allow private enterprise to thrive. The biggest problem that we're facing in our economy right now is regulatory uncertainty. If you look back at the Great Depression and you read about the Great Depression and the economic decisions that were made during the Great Depression, the single biggest mistake they made was creating regulatory uncertainty, where the consumer didn't know what rules they were playing by. The bankers didn't know what rules they were playing by. The investors didn't. So it froze the entire economy. And we were supposed to have all these smart people in Washington, but it's like there's no one in Washington that's actually read a history book, because we're actually doing the same thing again. And the thing that we need to do right now is we need to create regulatory uncertainty in the marketplace so we can actually let the markets work.
Thank you. Jane Norton.
Capitalism isn't the problem. Government intervention is the problem. First we saw a stimulus that hasn't created jobs. We know it can't. Then there was cap and trade, which would be a huge tax on American working families. And then health care reform, a so-called government option which would take control of 16% of our nation's economy. What we need to do is to let the markets work. We're overtaxed, we're over-regulated, and we're overspending. Invest in small businesses, let them do what they do best, that is to save, grow, and invest. That's how we get this economy out of the recession.
Please.
Our economic recession is actually not just ours, it's a worldwide recession. My experience working in over 20 countries over the last number of years and staying in touch with a lot of people in those countries in government and business, they're feeling the same things we're feeling. The main thing that's probably going to get us back on track is strictly, as Jane said, is let's get the government out of our lives and let's get free markets really moving. But it's more than giving them a chance to move. We have got to come up with some creative approaches and ideas to help small businesses so they have an incentive to get going. You know, we have people running the economic committees in Washington. This is amazing. The top 15 people have less experience in business than I do. I mean, what are we thinking? How do you think we're going to get this thing turned around if we don't have people up there that they don't even have a clue what's going on? So we've got to get government involved, but more importantly, we've got to get them involved enough to get out of the way so our businesses can go forward and give them some tax breaks and give them some incentives and let them make a living for a change.
Speaking of understanding capitalism, the big names like Stanford or Wharton, Duke or Harvard may be better known, but we're very proud of our business school in the undergraduate division on the campus across the street here at Colorado Christian University, as well as the graduate degree Master's in Business Administration that is offered by Colorado Christian University. And there are participative learning opportunities for our students. No better example than my colleague on the panel, Christina Shermer from Kentucky. When I first got to know her several months ago, I was so impressed with hearing about an internship that she did in the Netherlands to learn more about business, to come home and then help her father run his business. Christina, your question.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did we skip Ken Buck? Here I am. I'm the guy who said, don't cross the prosecutor. the Chief Justice just straightened me out. I may take the rest of the evening off. Turn this over to you, Mark.
John, don't drive in Weld County anytime soon.
You have the floor. I mean the whole floor.
My problem with the economy isn't capitalism, it's the government. We have had a number of policies that have set us back in this country for years. And one of them, one of the great ones that have really been a disaster for decades has been the energy policy in this country. We have had the largest transfer of wealth in the history of the world from the developing nations, or from countries like the United States, to oil-producing nations. And that has caused a foreign trade deficit in this country that's weakening the dollar and causing us serious problems. We have an education system that is failing in this country, and we need to produce the future workforce at a much higher level than we are right now. The deficits that are being caused by the out-of-control spending in Washington, D.C. is weakening the dollar and causing us serious problems. Gold is at an all-time high because nobody has faith that our dollar is in fact strong. All those things are not a failure of capitalism, but rather a failure of government.